All right, here we go. We're going to go to key issue two, where our consumer service is distributed. When we take a look at that, before we go any further, when we talk about the distribution pattern, there's two things I want you to write down. So number one, where it says distribution pattern, two very important things to write down. First, you guys, I want you to put down that there's a distinct relationship or a direct relationship among the number of services and the proximity of settlements from one another, okay? So there's a definite distinct relationship among the number of services and the proximity of settlements from one another. That's the first thing that I want you to put down for distribution pattern in regards to consumer services. The second thing I want you to put down is the larger the settlement, the more consumer services that are offered. Okay, so I think that's important that you put that down as well. The larger the settlement, the more consumer services that will be offered within that settlement. So I think that's important to say as well. Now, remember, you guys, when we talked about settlement in our last podcast or within your key issue packet, nutshell version is a settlement, and remember, is a permanent collection of buildings and inhabitants. Okay, again, it can range from 100 people to 20 million people or whatever, but we do see some form of permanent buildings and permanent inhabitants of that given area, and so there's a definite relationship. Now, the biggest thing that I want you to record, and I already wrote the definition down here so you can just copy it word for word if you want to pause and then copy it, or whatever it is you want to do. You have to get the concept of central place theory. It's going to take us a while, and there's lots of things that we're going to talk about, and I'll try to really break it down for you here. But central place theory, you guys, essentially stated that settlements of similar sizes tend to be equidistant of one another. And so when we talk about central place theory, you guys, simply put down the theory that helps to explain the distribution patterns of settlements due to the amount and types of consumer services offered within a given area. I think that's your best definition that we can have, and that's the best definition that we can make up. So again, I have it already written here for you. It's a theory that helps to explain the distribution patterns. That's the first thing you want to understand. It helps us to gain an understanding as to why certain services are offered where they are offered in some settlements but not other settlements. And so it's due to the amount and types of consumer services offered within a given area. With all that being considered, remember, you guys, we just got done saying that there's a direct relationship in regards to the number of services and the proximity of settlements from one another. So and we're going to go into that in quite great detail here. So be ready for that. Now, with central place theory, we defined it. Essentially, what we're trying to tell you is there's 4 points of emphasis. I would definitely get these down. Try to remember them as best as you possibly can. The 4 points of emphasis, or the 4 points I would like to emphasize within the central place theory. The first thing is it's going to attempt to illustrate how settlements locate in relation to one another. Okay, so that's the first thing you want to put down, is it's going to do this. The second thing it's going to do is it's going to display the amount of market area a central place can control. And we'll talk more about definitions, as you can see when we get to letter C. The first thing we talk about is market area. So please refer back to these. So these are kind of the 4 things that I want to make sure that you pull from central place theory. The third is central place theory helps to explain why some central places function as hamlets, villages, towns, or cities. And again, we will define those in the concept of this podcast. The fourth point of emphasis that I want you to make sure that you remember about central place theory is that it attempts to prove that settlements of similar sizes tend to be equidistant of one another. And I'm not sure why my spaces are so far off here, but they tend to be equidistant of one another. So there's another statement we would like you to put down. So nutshell version, here is central place theory. We identified the definition, we identified the points of emphasis, you guys, and now we're going to go into each point of emphasis to help you understand both vocabulary and concepts within each point of emphasis that we're going to talk about. But before we do that, I think you need to recognize this person right here. It wasn't just him, but he was kind of the ringleader of this. We have the founder of the central place theory is a guy by the name of Walter Christaller. Okay, so Walter Christaller, you could put down, is going to be the founder of central place theory. Okay, All right. And so we're going to continue to move on, and he's kind of given credit for it. There's other people that helped to add to it, to build to it, you guys, but Chris Stoller is considered to be kind of the founder or the father of central place theory. Now, in regards to what we said, it attempts to illustrate how settlements locate in relation to one another. If you look on page 435 in your textbook right here, and I'll just put that one extra page over there. Sorry about that. You will see, you guys, that central place theory is best represented with the images over here in the shape of a hexagon, you guys. And it's going to tell you what the problem is with circles in the overlapping. It's going to talk about the problem with squares. And again, we're not going to have this equidistance from the center. So when their sides are not going to be equidistant from one another. And I said that was a big part of it. So a nutshell version, when we talk about central place theory, you guys, it's going to be best illustrated through the hexagon, and that's what you can actually put down in your notes when it says hexagon right there. Simply put down that this is the shape that best illustrates central place theory, or to illustrate the market area of a given area. So again, it's going to be the best illustration, or the best shape that illustrates central place theory. Now, I told you before, it's going to display the amount of market area a central place can control. So when we talk about a market area, you guys, this refers to the surrounding areas influenced by the central place. Okay, so essentially it's the area, it's the entire area of the hexagon. So if we come back to it right here, and each dot is going to represent the central place right here. All right, and so you have that point right there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to look at it. The market area represents everything inside each one of these individual hexagons right there. So when we talk about market area, one more time, it's going to refer to the surrounding areas that are influenced by the central place. Nutshell version, in parentheses, put down area of the hexagon. Now, the central place, as I pointed out before, is going to be that nodal point, you guys, at which services are offered within a given market area. So as I mentioned before, the little dot that you see right here, the point right here, is going to indicate where the central place is. So it's going to represent the central point at which services are offered within a given market area. So that's going to be your central place. It's the nodal, or it's the point at which services are offered within a given market area. So it's that point in which services are offered within the area of this hexagon is essentially what I'm trying to tell you. Okay, now market range, another important vocabulary word right here. It's the maximum distance people are willing to travel to use a service. Okay, so you want to understand the concept of market area is going to be the surrounding area from the central place. The central place is going to be that point at which the service is offered, or the services are offered, you guys. And the market range then, as I said just a few moments ago, is going to be the maximum distance people are willing to travel to use a service. Essentially, a lot of times people would say it's kind of like the radius of a circle, or the radius in that range. So when we talk about this, the market range, that maximum distance people are willing to travel to use a service, that's going to vary in regards to what the service might be. If it's a small range, for example, people are only willing to travel a short distance for everyday. People are only willing to travel a short distance for this particular service. So when we take a look at small range, we're saying that people are only willing to travel a short distance for this particular service. Best example I can think of, and your book also uses it. I'm not even taking it from the book. I'm taking it from my college professor, said the same thing. The best example we can use is a gas station, you guys. We've kind of determined, in regards to this, the range of a gas station is about 3 miles, you guys, every 3 miles or so within that given area that we're looking at. And the reason why is people are not willing to travel, or cannot travel long periods of a long period of an area or a long period of time without, having to get gassed in order to complete the travel, or to continue the travel, I should say. High range, okay? People are more willing to travel longer distances for special services. Okay, these are special or unique services. So when we talk about high range, we are saying that people are more willing to travel longer distances for special services. Case in point, you guys, let's say my vehicle needs gas. I'm not going to drive to Minneapolis, St. Paul to use a particular gas station that services me gasoline that I can get in a much closer area. Even though I might like that gas station, I'm still not going to get in my car, waste a lot of gas that I have, travel 4 hours, you guys, and take that amount of time to do that. Or if you want to use a different service, grocery store would be another example. I don't go to the Twin Cities or to St. Paul, Minnesota, where I used to live, and grocery shop there. I don't go there to pick up my food right now. I go to Hornbacher's, you guys, because again, to me, groceries, gasoline, I'm only willing to travel a short distance for that particular service or good that's being offered. Now, high range is a different story. People are more willing to travel longer distances for special services. In other words, you guys, if there's a concert in the cities, you're probably going to laugh at me and make fun of me, so go ahead and pause it. But I really like country music, for example. I'd be willing to go to Target Field or where the Twins play to watch Kenny Chesney in concert, okay? I would be willing to travel that 4 hours to see that concert. So to me, that's a special type of service, you guys, that I'm willing to go to in order to partake in that service or have that service offered to me. So anytime we talk about this, small range tends to be about 3 miles or less, you guys. High range tends to be about 60 miles or more. All right. And so a lot of times people aren't looking at mileage. What they're really looking, and I even said it earlier, is people are often using time rather than miles to express their range. As I said before, I am unwilling to travel 4 hours to go get groceries for my house. However, I am willing to travel 4 hours to go see Kenny Chesney. So again, you guys, we're talking about this range, high range versus small range. I think you get the idea of what we're talking about. And that's all done within the hexagon again. Now, the threshold is the minimum number of people needed to support a particular service that is being offered. Okay, so again, when we talk about threshold in regards to human geography, we're talking about the minimum number of people needed to support a service being offered within that given market area. Okay, so that's what threshold is all about. And here's where we got to consider demographics. So you're starting to see all these topics in human geography are starting to pull themselves together. When we talked about demographics before, we talked about population, not just in regards to the population, total number of people, but we're also looking at the particular type of people within a given area. So when we talk about demographics, if you don't know this, and this isn't what I want you to write down, but maybe you want to jot it down on the side or something, but please remember that when we talk about demographics, we're talking about the population and the particular type of people that live within a certain given area. That's demographics in a nutshell. Now, when we talk about demographics here, this is what we do want you to know, is it's highly considered. All right, and may focus only on a specific group of people within the market area. So when we talk about services being offered, again, we are talking about a specific group of people within the market area that you're focusing on. Okay, so it's a focus on a specific group of people within the market area when determining what services you should provide and where they should be provided. Because remember what we're looking at the distribution of consumer services right here. All right. An example of this, you guys, would be, and you can see I wrote some down, when we're considering the demographics of consumer services, if there's a lot of younger people there, and maybe movie theaters isn't the best example, but when I was a kid, that was kind of what you did with your friends or your significant other in high school or whatever. So if I'm out of date here, I apologize. But you tend to see more movie theaters in demographics where there's a younger population or a significant younger population or a significant younger demographic group, there's that word again, in a particular area, whereas you tend to see more chiropractors that are in other areas to attract older folks. So depending upon if it's a younger community or an older place or a younger place, you guys, it's going to determine what type of services are offered. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. You only have a minimum number of people So you really have to consider the services that you're offered, and you do that by analyzing or looking over the demographics, you guys. I guess you could look at family areas. You tend to see like amusement parks or something like that versus nightclubs for single people. So you're constantly breaking down the demographics and looking not just at the total number, but looking at who the people are that make up the majority of that total number. All right. Now, a quick analysis of the central place theory. Again, you can find this on page 436 in your book. There's a bunch of bullet points there that you might want to follow. On 436, when we take a look at that, the first thing we want to say is that market areas, and again, this is just a breakdown of some general statements, so of what central place theory is kind of trying to prove, or what it does show, and we take a look at that. So when we look at this, the first thing is that market areas vary in size, therefore they may overlap one another, and you can kind of see that on page 436. Again, you guys, we can more than kind of see it. It definitely tells you right here. So if you look at this graphic right here, you guys, and you can see where the city is in comparison to the town versus the village and the hamlets after that. So the little bullet point under 1211, I mean, it sums it up beautifully. Central place theory: market areas are arranged in a regular pattern. Larger market areas based in larger settlements are fewer in number and further apart from each other than smaller market areas and settlements. However, larger settlements also provide goods and services, or just simply services, with smaller market areas. Consequently, larger settlements have both large and smaller market areas drawn around them, you guys. So again, what we're basically saying is, going back to what our notes are proving in this illustration, you can see it, and it's very hard to see the shading right here, but you can see the larger central place theory representing the city in comparison to what represents the hamlet based on color and shape. So essentially what we're seeing is several smaller hexagons within a larger hexagon is essentially what we're trying to tell you there, if that makes better sense. So remember, the market areas vary in size, therefore they may overlap one another. So a city's central place market area is going to be much larger than a hamlet marker. Again, hexagon area. I lost my train of thought there. Market area. Second comment here, when we were breaking down central place theory and some things that we're able to identify or get out of this: consumer services with larger thresholds, okay, ranges and market areas tend to be found in larger settlements. Kind of said that when I was doing that reading right there. However, consumer services with smaller thresholds, shorter ranges, and smaller market areas are found in smaller settlements then. So the more services, this gets back to what we were talking about with consumer services, they have a direct connection or relation. The amount of services offered has a direct connection or relation to the size of the settlement, is essentially what we're saying there. Good example, your book uses North Dakota, you guys, and so we got to take a look at that. On page 437, you can see right here is a map of North Dakota right here, and it's going to talk about Minot and its proximity, you guys, in regards to small towns, villages, and hamlets and whatnot. So you'll want to look at this map as we kind of talk about this. So if we use Minot, North Dakota on page 437 as an example right here, what you'd want to put down here is it's just simply it's a great example to illustrate what we are talking about with central place theory. It's a perfect example of everything that we're trying to break down and get out of central place theory. When we look at Minot, again, looking at the map, you'll see that there's 7 small towns between the populations of 1,000 to 5,000 with a market range. And again, you got to know your vocabulary here, you guys. The maximum distance people are willing to travel to use the service. So again, we have 7 small towns between populations of 1,000 to 5,000 with a market range of 20 miles. And again, that's the furthest they're willing to drive, and a market area of 1,200 square miles. So again, that's important for you to put down. Inside of that, then, if we're going to continue to break it down, because remember, these things overlap each other, as we said, there's 15 villages between the populations of 100 to 999 with a market range of 12 miles and a market area of 500 square miles. And then there's 19 hamlets, you guys. of fewer than 100 people with a market range of 10 miles and a market area of 300 square miles. So again, you guys, we're taking a look at this, okay? Now, does a great job of really breaking that down, and hopefully we can, if we need to talk about it in class, we certainly can. But Minot is a perfect example, one more time, you guys, to illustrate what we're talking about in regards to how market areas can vary in size. Therefore, the hexagons will overlap one another depending upon if it's a city, if it's a town, if it's a village, if it's a hamlet, that sort of thing. A second thing that we said is that consumer services with larger thresholds, ranges, and market areas tend to be found in the larger settlements. So again, that's another correlation that we're trying to get out of this. Now, why do we have to analyze and use central place theory? And I guess that's what we're going to talk about next right here. We need to look at what the purpose is behind central place theory. Again, you guys, central place theory is going to help to determine the potential, and this is important for you to write down, so you might have to pause it and make sure that you get it down here, you guys. It helps to determine the potential profitability of a given location in regards to economic expansion or economic restriction. So that's a lot of words right there, but please understand the whole purpose behind central place theory, and your book says it, I say it, and again, my professors in college said the same thing, that central place theory, you guys, ultimately helps to determine the potential profitability of a given location in regards to economic expansion or economic restriction. Gives us a good idea of understanding how to go about doing this. Kind of the central place theory kind of also coincides with something known as the gravity model, you guys. And that gravity model, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it, but it essentially predicts the best location of a service is directly related to the number of people within the area, and we've mentioned that before. So the gravity model basically makes a prediction or goes ahead and shows us that the best location of a service is directly related to the number of people within that area. All right, and inversely, it's related to the distance traveled to get there. Okay, so when we look at the gravity model, we're again saying that the best location of a service is directly related to the number of people within that area and the fewer miles that are needed to get there in regards to that. So you're trying to cut down the miles, but still trying to put it in a location where there's plenty of people. So again, it's a kind of a thought process there. 438 and 439 in your book provides a very well-written example of using central place theory in the real world, if we can say it that way, you guys, and not just in the theoretical world, but in the real world. And so it'll talk about where it plans on. It talks about this new supermarket that they've established, where it's established, and it's going to figure out all the things like the market area, estimating the range, estimating the threshold, you guys, and then predicting the market share as well. So 438, 439 does a great job of putting central place theory into practice for you. All right. Okay, so there we go. This is central place theory. The next thing that we're going to talk about is the distribution of business services, and we will continue that on a different day. Please take the time to watch this podcast. Pause this podcast, come back ready to ask any questions that may pop up between here and there, because this central place theory is a very, very important piece of the services, of the tertiary sector on services for Chapter 12. With that, have a great night, and we will see you tomorrow.